In this video, I will show you how you can sum values based on a condition. So in order to understand how this works, let's work on this example. So in the screen, you have a sales data set where you can see the list of different orders. Each order has a number, a date, a salesperson. The salesperson is the person who did the sale. And then we have a product ID, a price per unit, a quantity ordered, and then the total value is calculated based on the unit price and the quantity ordered. So we basically multiply the unit price by the quantity ordered. And then here we have the customer name, the person who purchased the product, and here we have the city where the order was made. So let me just refresh your memory and remind you of the sum function. The sum function is a function that will allow you to sum a group of cells or a range of cells. Okay, so in our case, let's sum the total value made. So in this case, we use the sum function as the following, and then we select all the column G like this. We close the parentheses, we press enter, and as you can see, this is the total value made. So imagine if we need, for example, to sum the total value made, but instead of summing everything, we want to display the total value made by each salesperson. So let's say, for example, that we want to give bonuses to our salespersons, and the bonus is calculated based on the total value generated. So how can we display the total value made by each salesperson? Now, maybe we can use some function to do it, but as you can see, it doesn't work like this. So instead of doing it this way, what we can do is maybe, using the sum function, and then here the idea is to, for example, let's work with Lucas Brown. So we will check all the rows of our data set, and we need to select the cells where the salesperson is Lucas Brown. So the first one is okay, we selected, then the second one is also okay, then we have this one, then this one, then where are you, Lucas, then this one, and so on. We need to do it for all the list, okay? But as you can see, it's taking us a lot of time to do the work for just one salesperson. Imagine if we have 10,000, 100,000 orders. I don't think the best way to do it is by doing it this way, okay? So in this video, I will show you 3 solutions for this problem. The first solution is going to be the easiest, and the last solution is going to be, the hardest, but in my opinion, the most effective, okay? So let's create a new sheet. Let's name it solution number 1, okay? And if you are like me, whenever I create a new sheet, I like to use Poppins as the basic font, center everything, put everything in the middle, and then change the height of the rows. So I select everything. By the way, if you want to do it, press Ctrl Shift and down arrow, and then I will resize the rows, put 25 here, okay? So now we are good to go. Okay, so what do you want to do in this example? We want to list the different salespersons, and for each salesperson, we want to display the total value generated by this salesperson, okay? So the first thing that we need to do is list here the different salespersons. How we do it? We use a function called unique. So as you can see, the unique function will use 3 different parameters. The first parameter is going to be the salesperson's column. So we select the column C, and then the second parameter is not mandatory, by the way, and the third parameter is also not mandatory. So we close the parentheses, and as you can see here, we have the list of the different salespersons. And what's good with the unique function is that instead of showing all the list that you have here inside the data source, it will display all the values just once. Okay, so here we know that we have the full list. So let me change some formatting. So this is gonna be a header. I change the background color, the font color. I will make it bold, and I will maybe change also the width of these columns. So I will put here 150. Perfect. So here we have the list of the different salespersons. Now I wanna display the total value. Put a dollar sign here, and since this column will display a value, so I wanna change the format to currency. And here I want to make this a header too, so the easiest way to do it is to select this header, click on paint format, and then select the new header. And as you can see, the formatting is automatically copied. So now that we have listed the different salespersons, what we need to do is use the sum function to sum the total value. But again, we need to display the total value for each salesperson. So instead of using the sum function, we will use a function called SUMIF. And in this sum function, we will be able to add a condition so that Google Sheets will take into account this condition and only sum the value if the condition is true. So what is the range of the condition? The range of the condition is going to be the salespersons. Okay, so we'll select the column of the salespersons. And then here we need to add the criteria. So the criteria will always be tested. So we will test every time if this value, okay, the value that you see here, is equal to the value of this range. And if this is true, we will sum the total value. Let's press enter and then drag down. So when we drag down, as you can see, the formula is applied to the rest of the table. So as you can see here, for each salesperson, we have now the total value. So again, we use the SUMIF, and then we are comparing this value to this range. And when the condition is true, we are summing this value. Okay? Perfect. So this is the first solution. Inside the first solution, we have used two functions, the unique function and then the SUMIF function. Now, let's see the second solution. Instead of creating a new one, let's just duplicate this one. Okay. And then just let me rename it to solution number 2. Okay. Now, let me maybe delete these columns. Good. So in the second solution, instead of using functions, we will use one of the most powerful features inside Google Sheets, which is pivot tables. So if you don't know how to use pivot tables, maybe this is the first time that you hear about this feature, make sure to pay attention, because I will show you how to create and how to customize the pivot tables and show you how amazing this feature is. So pivot tables is basically a feature that will allow you to split your data into categories. So in our example, the categories are going to be the salespersons. So we will split our data into different categories. Each category will be a salesperson, and then we will aggregate the total value made by each category, by each salesperson. So in order to do it, we need to select all our data. And instead of selecting the range like this, we want to select everything. So my recommendation is to select all the columns from A to I, and then go to Insert and choose Pivot Table here. Okay, so we have here a small pop-up. As you can see, this is the data range, sheet sales from column A to I, and instead of inserting the pivot table into a new sheet, let's just insert it into an existing sheet. So as you can see, when we select existing sheet here, Google Sheets is asking us to give a range, a cell, where we want to insert our pivot table. So in our example, we want to put it inside solution number 2. So we will select the sheet and select this cell, for example. Confirm and then create. As you can see, when we click on create, we have this pivot table editor menu that is displayed in the right side of the screen. And as you can see here, we have all the columns of our data source. And here we have rows, columns, values, filters. So the idea is to drag and drop the columns into rows, columns, values, or filters. Okay. So in our example, we want to display something like this. So for each salesperson, we want to display the total value made. So the salesperson will be listed in the rows. So in this case, we will drag the salespersons and put it in the rows. So once this is done, as you can see, all the salespersons are listed. Let me just maybe modify the size of the columns. Let's put 150. Perfect. And then let's remove the totals. Okay, so when you tick this option, you will here show the grand total, and when you untick it, you will no longer show it. You know what? Let's keep it ticked in order to show you how this feature works. And here we are sorting the values in an ascending way based on the salespersons alphabetically. Perfect. So now that we have listed all the salespersons, inside the values, what we want to have is the total value. So let's drag and drop the total value here to the values, as you can see. And here, by default, Google Sheets is saying, okay, you want me to put the total value inside the values? By default, I will use the sum function. You can change the function if you want here based on the need, but in our example, indeed, we need to sum the values, okay? So, perfect. Now we can close this tab, and as you can see here, for each salesperson, now we have the total value made. Yeah, we can maybe change this. Let's make the text white and change the background color. Perfect. So now we have something that looks like this. Of course, we have the same values because the solution is okay, it works, and also data source is the same. So inside the first solution, again, we have used two functions, the unique function and the SUMIF. In the second solution, we have used pivot tables. Now, in the third solution, let me duplicate this sheet. And then I will rename it. Okay. So in the third solution, instead of using the unique and the SUMIF, I will use only one function to do the work. And this function is called the query function. In my opinion, it is one of the most powerful functions, if not the most powerful function in Google Sheets. So let me show you how to use it. Equal sign, query. As you can see, the query function will take three parameters. The first one is going to be the data source. So in our case, we will select all the data source like this. Okay. And then here we'll put the query. For the moment, let's keep it empty. And then here we can choose if you want to display the headers or not. In my example, I want to display the headers, so we can put 1 or true. And if we don't want to display the headers, we can leave it empty, 0 or false. Okay, so in our example, we will keep it. So let's put 1 here. Okay. Now, as you can see, the query function, what it's doing, it's displaying my data set. Why? Because I am selecting all the data set and the query is empty. So the query function is just displaying the data source. It's doing nothing to the data. Okay, let me resize it to 150. Perfect. Let's make this header. Okay, let's don't do it. So now that we have a clear idea about how the query function works, let's add here a query in order to start playing with the data. So in our example, we want to display the salespersons and the total value. So the salespersons, as you can see here, is in the column C and the total value is in the column G. So let's only display these two values. So if we want to do it, then we need to type select C, comma, G. When we press enter, as you can see, we have only these two columns displayed. Now, what we need to do, instead of showing each, so now instead of showing the list of different orders, let's group our salespersons. So to do it, we need to use a feature called group by, and we want to group our data by the salespersons. The salespersons is located in the column C. So let's select group by C. Okay. And instead of displaying the total value, let me add the sum function like this to sum the total value and group by the salespersons. So when I press on enter, as you can see here, we have the total value displayed for each salesperson. Maybe I need to change the formatting like this and change the background color for the headers, change the font color and make it bold. So as you can see here, we have one problem and three solutions to fix it. My favorite solution is going to be the query function because I think that it's just more effective and you can do much more things with the query function, and it's also really quick to implement.